right, you guys, this is episode 39 of War Stories. And without further ado, I'm going to get straight to it. So check it out, you guys. I'm going to take you guys back to 1987. Way back. Your boy was 17 years old in 1987. So you guys know a little bit about my history. For those of you that read my book, unfortunately, I didn't have a childhood. I got addicted to heroin at the age of 12. I had aspirations to be a boxer. I actually trained for a while in Newman's gym when Newman's gym was still up and around in downtown in the Tenderloin. However, those dreams, they died in the cooker, literally. I ended up at a young age getting addicted. And, in 1987, the Mission District was completely different than it is now. The whole landscape has changed. There is no more Army Street. There's my hood and a lot of the other hoods out there, 24th, 22nd, Bryant Street, Hampshire, Cortland, 30th. A lot of those hoods, Happy Homes, Southeast, Excelsior Park, Daly City, a lot of those hoods were out there thick in 87, 88, 89. But, nobody's out there no more. Everybody from my generation is either dead, in prison doing life, or they settled down and they're family men now. They've gotten out of that lifestyle. Nowadays, it seems like the whole Mission District, the whole face of it has changed. There's like substations on every corner. They've cleaned it up. So I used to run around in the Mission at that time, and I used to run around downtown in the Tenderloin. The Tenderloin is the closest that San Francisco has to Skid Row. Down there, it's worse than the Mission District. Down there in the Tenderloin, you got crowds of people out on Eddie and Turk, all through the whole TL. You got people out there in the streets sleeping and pissing and shitting on the sidewalks. You got a lot of those little dingy ass hotels where they're basically shooting galleries, and all the hoes that are working the strip right there, they take their tricks up to those hotels, and they can rent a room for 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's a trip. All the hotels in Frisco, like 90% of those type of hotels are owned by Middle Eastern cats. And they know what's going on. So like a lot of the prostitutes, they'll go in and they'll be like, hey, let me rent a room for like 20 minutes. And that's what they would do. They're dirty, filthy, cockroach infested fucking shitholes. That's what they are. If you go into some of those hotels, you'll walk down the hallway and a lot of the doors will be open because people go from room to room. Everybody knows each other. They're all part of that same crowd that are shooting dope. Everybody's trying to get well. People are selling dope. That's what it is. So if you're walking down through one of the rooms or through the halls, you'll see like a lot of the doors will be open and you'll see people in there shooting dope. Not to be disrespectful and looking at people's shit, but you're walking down the hall, you can't help but to kind of glance in some of these rooms and you'll see groups of motherfuckers in there shooting and just all kind of crazy shit going on in there. People getting stabbed, shot in these hotels. They got a lot of them in the Mission District. It's just not as bad as the Tenderloin. In the Mission District, you got the King, you had the Star Hotel, you got the Royan. There's a bunch of different ones, and it's the same shit. When I was around 12, that's when my stepfather found out I was shooting dope. And that's when he basically was like, check it out, dude. You're either gonna have to get up out of here, or you're gonna have to learn how to support your own habit. You want to do grown folk shit? Well, you're gonna learn how to sling your own dope, and you're gonna learn how to support your own habits. So that's what I did. I remember the first car I bought before I even had a license. I saved, a lot of the money that I was making from slinging dope. I remember keeping it in a sock. And, every time I would flip my bag, I would put a couple hundred in that sock. I ended up buying a 1975 Chrysler off of a lot on 15th in Mission. I want to say it was about, at that time, it was about 1,500, which was a lot of money, especially for a 16-year-old like myself. However, I remember driving around in that car, man. That motherfucker was just a big piece of fucking hard steel. I used to run into cars, run into telephone poles, back it up, throw it in reverse, just take off. Never had a license. I did a lot of dirt in that car, but that was my first car. Anyway, so in 1987, at that time, again, San Francisco was a different place. Everything changed over the years, even up until the 90s. You didn't have Sureño neighborhoods back in 87. The closest you had to Sureños at that time were the Mata Salvatruchas that were up on 20th and Mission. They used to kick it in the donut shop. They had a donut shop right there on the corner. And then they used to go up there to Dolores Park. But you didn't have Sureños on 19th. That came later. That became one of their strongholds. So at that time, I used to kick it on 19th. I used to run around right there. All the way up to 20th, you had a lot of hand-to-hand activity out there. Dope dealers, street runners that used to sell one-on-ones, $10 bag of cocaine and a $10 or $15 bag of heroin. They used to call, back then everybody was doing Belushis. And you had that ether-based cocaine. I know some of you remember that. That shit used to hit you in the fucking chest. As soon as you run it, it would hit you in the chest, and then you taste that shit in your mouth. But that was the good shit, and your tongue would get numb. Now, everything's got fucking fentanyl in it. Even the black. The heroin that they used to sell back in those days was that El Salvadorian gumball. The way that they used to make it back then, not too many people had that black back then, that Mexican tar. Back then, what they used to do is they used to take that shit and they would put it in a coffee grinder where they grind up the beans. They put that in there and they would take lactose and they'd use that to cut it with. And, the way it used to look when you would take it out, it would be like a beige ball that had little specks of black in it. That was what was called El Salvadorian gumball. And because they used lactose, everybody that shot that shit would get hooked with would get hooked on the sugar too. That's why a lot of the guys that would go to the county jails that would go in there hooked with habits, the first thing that these motherfuckers would want is anybody and everybody that had candy bars, anything with sugar in it, because they were hooked on the sugar as well. You had motherfuckers in there eating Kool-Aid right out of the fucking packet, pouring it in their mouths because they were trying to get that sugar. Their bodies were craving it. Anyway, so the reason we used to keep the dope inside balloons is because back in 87, between around 87 and I'm going to say 89, 90, 91, 92, around that time, up until around 92, everybody used to keep their dope in balloons because you put it in there, you twist it, tie it up, tie a knot, push it through, twist it, push it through, twist it, push it through, and it'd be like a little ball. And then you throw them in your mouth. You keep them in your mouth. That's how you used to secure them, because the cops out there at that time in the Mission, and I still remember some of the names of them. You had Cagney and Lacey. You had, which was a show on TV back in those days. You had a cat named Kojak that used to run around out there. You had Duffy, which was a sergeant. You had Cozio and Miranda. And they had a couple other ones, but those were some of the main ones. But these guys were undercover cops and they were treacherous. They used to run around blending in with the crowds down there. And if they knew you were a dope dealer, they suspected you of selling dope, they would run up on you, grab you around the fucking throat, pick you up like a suitcase. And, you had 3 or 4 of them, one of them choking you, trying to get you to spit that shit out. But, you used to have to be quick, man. Keep your back to the wall and watch all your surroundings, because if they ran up on you, what you would do is you'd swallow that shit. You swallow it, they choke you out, find out you ain't got nothing on you, and then they'd be like, all right, motherfucker, I hope you die. You know what I'm saying? I hope that shit blows up in your fucking stomach. But they couldn't arrest you. And then what you do is once they ran your name and you didn't have no warrants, they let you go. you go to a liquor store, get you a pint of chocolate milk, shake that motherfucker up, guzzle that shit, and you be able to bring it back up. Just make yourself throw it up and try to get as many bags as you could. Anyway, so that's what I was doing in 87. You know, like I said, I had for a brief period of time, I had aspirations to be a boxer. I was into it for a while. That was one of the reasons why they started calling me Boxer. That and because of the infamous alley behind McDonald's. I used to fight all the time back there. Other cats from other hoods, cats from my neighborhood, some of the older homies. I used to have all kind of fights back there. But that was one of the reasons why I earned my name. People started using that name and it stuck. Anyway, so a lot of those hotels that I told you guys about, I knew several people that lived in there. So sometimes I need to cut my dope up, you know, sometimes I need a spot to go do my thing. I would go to those spots. And there was one individual over there in the Royan Hotel by the name of Tim. He was an Africano, cool ass cat that, you know, I ran with out there in the mission. I did a lot of shit with him. And he had no lady named Roberta she was a prostitute. And, you know, I got numerous stories about how, you know, she would set up cats for me and Tim, and you know, she'd get them in the hotel room, and then she let us in, and we go in and we fucking strip them, fucking turn their pockets inside out. If we had to, we go in there and smash them. But she, you know, she was a prostitute. Anyway, I remember on this one particular occasion, I went over there to their spot, and I was cutting up some dope with another Africano that I used to run with. Actually met him in the Tenderloin. He was a cool cat. I can't remember his name right now, but we're gonna call him Leo for the sake of this story. So me and Leo, we go over there and we're chopping up our dope. We got coke and we got heroin. We're selling our 1-and-1s out there. And his name was Marvin. Fucking Marvin. That was his name. And I can put his name out there because this story's really got nothing to do with any kind of criminal activity that me and him were involved in on this occasion, at least right here. So anyway, me and Marvin went over there and we're chopping up our shit. We're bagging it up. And right across the street from the Royan Hotel was the Valencia Gardens, the VGs, which are the projects. It's another projects that's in the Mission District, kind of like Army Street. I told you guys about in one of my previous war stories. So Army Street's still there though. They haven't tore Army Street down. At least I don't believe so. At least not as far as I know. But anyway, so, you know, when we go over to Tim's spot, Tim is like, hey, man, check it out. You know, I can't go to the VGs because I got a lot of fucking enemies over there. And, you know, I can't go over there. But do me a favor, man. I need you to go over there and give me a $20 rock, right? So I had been to the VGs before. I used to go in there. I knew cats that lived in there. I knew a couple. I didn't know a whole lot of people in there, but I knew a couple. And if you guys remember, I talked about it in one of my previous episodes where I was actually in a group home that they sent me to from Youth Guidance Center, which is juvenile hall. And one of the counselors that worked in this program that used to be a counselor in juvenile hall actually had me go to these same projects and get him a rock. It blew my fucking mind, man, that he smoked rocks. I tripped out, but I went down there, got him, served him up, brought it back, and he smoked that shit. Anyway, so Tim asked me to go get him a $20 rock. So I was like, fuck, you know, I'll do that for you, man. I had been over there. I never had no issues in the VGs prior to this day right here. So that day, you know, once me and Marvin, we finished chopping up, you know, our dope and bagging everything up, he went with me to the VGs. So we go across the street, and I remember going up in there, and there's a bunch of youngsters out there that day. It was during the summer. It was a hot ass day. And, I'm pretty sure it's the same everywhere. But when you go in there for a fucking rock, something like that, to get some dope in the projects, like 30 motherfuckers will run up on you at the same time. Everybody's trying to get you to buy their shit. They got the biggest rocks. Their shit's the best. And I mean, they bombard you. You got like fucking 15, 20 hands trying to give you dope. Anyway, these are all youngsters, bunch of youngsters. I didn't know none of them. I knew some cats that lived in the back, older cats, but I didn't know none of these youngsters. But I wasn't going there to hook up with anybody I knew anyway. I was going there to get served for this dude. So when I asked these cats, I'm like, hey, who got 20 shots? Like 15 of them came up and they're all trying to serve me. And I'm like, man, just like one youngster had them, and I looked at them and they looked cool. But when I went to grab one of the rocks out of his hand, he held on to that and he had his other hand and he was like, here. So I put my hand out and he put a bunch of crumbs in my hand, about a whole handful of crumbs. And I'm like, hey, homie, I don't want this, bro. I'm cool. This is somebody's money. I'm doing somebody a favor. No, I don't want this right here. And he's like, bro, he's like, come on, man. He's like, you got my dope in your hand. He's like, give me my money. And I'm like, homie, this ain't my money. Take this back, man. I don't want this. Let me get one of them rocks. He's like, bro, quit playing, man. He was like, give me my money. You gonna give me my money? I'm like, you gonna take this back? He don't want to take the rocks back. He wants his money. So I'm trying to give the dude his dope. He don't want to take it. So I just start dropping it. I start, here, man. Start dropping it on the floor. And when I do that, dude just steals on me. Banks on me. Bah! When he does that, I remember I had a bottle in my hand. I want to say I had a beer, a 40 or something. But when he did that, I went to back up and I slipped and I fell and landed right on the bottle. Bottle broke. When I go down, I get kicked in the face. I get bombed on again from this cat. I mean, these motherfuckers was whooping me like a rag doll. Um, they all came at me. It's like one got on me, they all came at me. And I remember my boy Marvin, he was with me. He was Africano, big Africano though. Marvin was at that time I'm 17, Marvin's like 35, but he was a big cat. So he came in, he's getting off. I'm doing what I can, but these cats, it was too much for us. So we end up turning around and we hit the burners. Skate sticks in motion, straight up. So we're running and we're running back towards the Royan Hotel. And I remember running and this fool was right behind me. Fast motherfucker. I couldn't outrun him. And he just kept cracking me in the head with I think he had like the leg of a table or something, but he kept cracking me in the head all the way down the street until we finally hit Valencia. When we hit Valencia, we go back across the street, and I'm mad as a motherfucker, man. I'm mad. I got 5, 6 knots on the back of my head because the old boy was cracking me in the head with that table leg. And my hand's cut from falling on the bottle. I still got his $20 bill. I don't got the rock. You know what I mean? I dropped that on the ground. I got socked in the mouth, my lips bleeding. So, I was mad. It wasn't Tim's fault, but, I should have knew better than to go over there like that in the projects, man. Out there with a lot of those youngsters when you don't know them. I heard a lot of homeboys of mine go through those projects, and a lot of those youngsters, they're just dumb like that. They're with that bullshit, man. So anyway, I was hot, man. I wanted blood. I was like, man, I need a pistol. I need a pistol. Go back down there, man, and somebody got to get shot for this shit. Anyway, Tim had a shotgun. He had a double barrel shotgun, and he was like, man, I'll shoot you the shotgun, man, if you guys want to take it back down there and handle your business, but I want my shit back. You end up getting a body. He was like, you're gonna have to give me another shotgun. So, I was just like, man, just let me borrow that motherfucker, man. So anyway, he gave me the shotgun loaded. I didn't have no extra bullets or nothing like that, man. We end up going down there to back down to the projects, and all those youngsters that were down there were gone. They're gone, man. We walked through the projects, motherfuckers they all took off. I don't know what we were gonna do. I told Marvin I was just, if I see any of them, I'm busting on them. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. We went down there, and like I said, everybody was gone. I don't know if somebody called the cops after we left. They just cleared out. But when we went back down there, everybody was gone, man. I know this was a quick one. I just want to get something out to you guys because we've been dark for like a couple weeks now. Anyway, I got a couple more for you guys. I'm just gonna keep pushing out these short ones, long ones. I got some bangers for you guys, but I'm gonna throw a couple short ones here and there. So at least I'm giving you guys something. But for those of you that are familiar with Frisco, the VGs, man, it's always been like that. There's always a lot of activity for those little small projects, man. Motherfuckers always getting shot out there. Somebody's always getting robbed. But, that was the only incident I ever had in Valencia Gardens, and it was over somebody else's dope. Crazy ass shit. Anyways, you guys, this episode 39. I know it's a short one. I'm gonna try to get a couple more out to you guys. I got some bangers, but I'm gonna even get these little short ones out just so I can get something to you guys because we've been dark for about 2 weeks. Anyways, this your boy B. This episode 39, and I'm out.